Labor is going to go through some changes in this time period as well, as prices drop on important things like food and wages go up. Now, they don't go up as much as the boss's profits go up, but as prices go down and wages go up, we're going to see the standard of living for most Americans improve over the long term. However, that gap between the rich and the poor does grow in this time period. As a result of that gap growing and the other hardships we've already mentioned, workers begin to organize, not just into local unions, but into national labor organizations. And we'll talk about some of the specific ones, like the Knights of Labor and the American Federation of Labor, in detail later in this unit. All of this is happening while the industrial workforce is expanding. Children are brought into the industrial workforce. Immigrant labor, almost all immigrants that come to America end up working in factories of some sort, and many of whom join with organized labor, and women organize as well. Now, those groups don't always welcome each other. There is discrimination within organized labor, but the workforce is expanding, and more people are moving to cities in this time as well. I don't have a slide on that specifically, but oftentimes in countries, industrialization leads to urbanization. That's what happens in the United States as well. Let's talk specifically about immigrants for a moment. We saw before the Civil War a lot of immigration from Northern and Western Europe, we could say. Ireland, Germany, and Scandinavian countries, along with England. After the Civil War, in the Gilded Age, we're going to see immigration continue from those places, but really increase from some new regions. We're going to see an increase in immigration from Southern Europe with places like Greece and Italy, and from Eastern Europe with people from Poland and Russia, as well as immigration from China, although that is stopped after 1882 with the Chinese Exclusion Act. The Chinese Exclusion Act is part of that debate over immigration, that debate over whether these new immigrants, which are seen as even more foreign and even more different as maybe immigrants in the past, Americans debate whether or not those people will ever truly assimilate, ever truly become Americans, or will they remain too different? There's attempts at literacy tests, and even some of the people who are helping immigrants in what were called settlement houses are also working to change their traditional behaviors. Immigrants often compromise. They might speak English where they work, but they might return to an ethnic neighborhood in a certain part of town where they're able to speak Russian or Polish or Italian or Greek. And they hold on to many of their traditions like food and holidays. If we're talking about immigrants, we should also mention political machines. Political machines is the term used for the combination of government and political party found in the cities that emerge because the cities grow so quickly in this time period. And the political machines were important to providing services and jobs to people in the cities because the traditional city infrastructure was not able to do so. Political machines helped many Americans, or played a role in many Americans' lives, especially immigrants. They assisted immigrants in finding housing, finding employment, but oftentimes in exchange for votes. Voting at this time was public record. It was not a secret who you voted for. We also see in this time period a development of an American middle class. Managers and clerical workers, as part of industrial capitalism, are going to make up that middle class. Rising or increasing numbers of educational institutions are going to produce more and more Americans that are going to call themselves part of a growing middle class. And these middle class people have leisure time opportunities like attending sporting events, parks, bicycles, all sorts of things more things for Americans to do in their leisure time. We're going to see, as a result, a growth of a consumer culture in America and the development of the earliest version of our suburbs, where people with some means move out of the city center as more and more working class people move to the city to be nearer the factories where they work. We're also going to see in this time period, we'll study cultural movements, one of which is known as social Darwinism. This is really the perversion of Charles Darwin's ideas about biological evolution and trying to apply it to human society. It's saying things like survival of the fittest, that the rich are rich because they work harder and are more talented. We'll also see an emergence of the movement known as the gospel of wealth, and Andrew Carnegie is the main proponent of this. It says that the best way of dealing with wealth inequality was for the wealthy to utilize their surplus wealth in means that are responsible and thoughtful. Not the government taxing the wealthy and then spending it on what the people need. Not the poor spending that money directly, but the wealthy spending that money in thoughtful and responsible manners. For example, Andrew Carnegie funding a library. We'll also see finally the social gospel movement, which said that, and this one is the more religious of these three, which said that good Christians seek to solve social problems now and not just wait for the afterlife for equality. Women are going to play an especially important role in that social gospel movement and moving forward in reform movements as they form voluntary organizations, as more and more women are college educated, and they take advantage of the opportunities to play an important role in their community with settlement houses, a phenomenon we'll talk about in more detail. We're also going to see some division in perspectives on the economy. That old view of the government and the economy, the laissez-faire view of government staying hands off, remains. It had always been there. However, as unions grow in size and strength, there's going to be more and more arguments for regulation, for safety, and for workers getting a larger share. We'll even see the emergence of some truly radical economic views from people like Edward Bellamy and the industrial workers of the world, the most radical national labor organization. These guys are going to express what could be described as clearly socialist views, a radical break from American capitalism. We'll also see an emergence of some new political debates in this time period. Debates over the tariff and whether or not it's still needed. Remember, a tariff is designed to help infant industries just getting started, help them compete with especially foreign competition. American industries aren't infant industries by the end of the 1800s. We'll also see a debate over currency policy. At this time, America used what was called commodity-backed money. So every dollar bill could be exchanged for a set amount of hard currency, gold, okay? But there's a question over whether or not America should continue to back its dollars with gold. Some people would like to see America back its dollars with gold and silver. That would make more money available. That would make that would create inflation, but some people were in favor of that, and we'll talk about why. There's also questions about political corruption. Since the time of Andrew Jackson, it had been common practice to use what was known as the spoils system, where the party that wins elections gets to reap the benefit of that by rewarding supporters and campaign contributors with jobs in the government. This is known as the spoils system. But what that led to was a lot of unqualified people serving in the government's bureaucracy. As government gets bigger and government is required to do more, there's more and more of a need for qualified people in government. We would need to change the spoils system for that to work. On the state and local level, questions about graft, questions about state and local politicians benefiting from the business that local governments do. For example, if a city is going to build a park, is it right for a city politician to purchase land around where that park is going to be because that land is going to jump up dramatically in value? Or is that not what we think should be happening with our elected representatives? In this time period, we continue to have our major two parties from right before the Civil War, the Democrats and Republicans, and they really hold on to those Civil War era divisions. We're going to see the Republicans emerge as the party that's more friendly to business, while the Democrats are more in favor of a small central government. And to finish it up, here's a picture of my dog when he was a puppy last year. Do not be fooled. He is a vicious, vicious tyrant now. I know he looks sweet and innocent here, but he's a monster. So, yeah. You guys have a good day.